Três Corações, Brazil, 1940. In a small, poor town, a boy was born who would one day be called the greatest footballer who ever lived. His parents named him Edson Arantes do Nascimento. The world would later know him simply as Pele. His family was desperately poor. His father, Dondinho, had been a promising footballer himself, but a serious knee injury cut his career short before it ever truly began. The family survived on very little. Young Edson could not even afford a real football, so he and his friends made their own, stuffing old socks with newspaper and rags, tying it all together with string. That was his first ball. That was where it all began. He could not afford boots either. For years, Pele played barefoot on dusty streets and dirt fields, the rough ground cutting and bruising his feet. But none of that mattered to him. Even as a small child, something about the way he moved with that makeshift ball was different. His father noticed it first. He began teaching young Edson everything he knew, and slowly a legend started to take shape on the streets of a poor Brazilian town. To earn a little extra money for his family, Pele worked as a shoeshine boy, polishing the boots of strangers passing through town. The irony would only become clear later. A boy with no boots of his own, shining the boots of others, while carrying inside him the talent that would one day make him the most famous footballer on the planet. By his early teenage years, his talent had become impossible to ignore. He played for a local youth club, then caught the attention of a former Brazilian international player named Waldemar de Brito. De Brito was so convinced of Pele's ability that he made an extraordinary claim to the directors of Santos Football Club. He told them this young boy would become the greatest player in the world. In 1956, at just 15 years old, Pele signed his first professional contract with Santos. The boy from Três Corações was about to change football forever.
Pele's rise at Santos was almost unbelievable. Within a year of signing, at just 16 years old, he became the top scorer in the entire Brazilian league. He was a boy playing among grown men and outscoring all of them. In 1957, at just 16 years old, he made his debut for the Brazilian national team. A year later, in 1958, he traveled to Sweden for the FIFA World Cup. He was still only 17, the youngest player in the entire tournament. Many doubted whether someone so young could handle the pressure of the world's biggest stage. Pele silenced every doubt. He scored a hat trick in the semifinal against France. Then, in the final against the host nation Sweden, he scored 2 more goals, including one of the most iconic goals in World Cup history, a delicate chip over a defender's head before calmly volleying the ball into the net. Brazil won the World Cup. Pele, just 17 years old, had become a global icon overnight. He cried tears of joy on the pitch, completely overwhelmed by what he and his team had just achieved. That triumph was only the beginning. Pele helped Brazil win the World Cup again in 1962, though injury limited his role in the tournament itself. At club level with Santos, he became an unstoppable force, winning countless domestic titles and 2 Copa Libertadores championships, along with 2 Intercontinental Cups, facing and defeating the best club teams in the entire world. His fame grew to a level no footballer had ever experienced before. He was no longer just an athlete, he was a global celebrity. In one of the most remarkable stories in football history, it is said that during a civil war in Nigeria in 1969, both sides of the conflict agreed to a temporary 48-hour ceasefire, simply so that soldiers and citizens alike could watch Pele play an exhibition match. Whether every detail of that story is exactly accurate or has grown with legend over the years, the fact that people believed it was possible says everything about the power Pele held over the world. In 1969, Pele scored his 1,000th career goal, a milestone celebrated across the entire footballing world. He had become more than a player. He had become a symbol of joy, of skill, of what football could be at its absolute best.
Then came 1970 and the World Cup in Mexico. Many believed this would be Pele's final World Cup, his last chance to add one more chapter to his legendary story. The Brazilian team he led that year is still considered by many experts to be the greatest international football team ever assembled. In the final against Italy, Brazil delivered one of the most dominant performances in World Cup history, winning 4-1. Pele opened the scoring with a towering header and provided a stunning assist for the final goal, a pass so effortless and visionary that it remains one of the most replayed moments in football history. With that victory, Pele became the only player in history to win the World Cup 3 times. He retired from the Brazilian national team shortly after, his international legacy complete and untouchable. In 1975, Pele made a surprising move, coming out of retirement to join the New York Cosmos in the United States. At the time, football was barely known in America. Pele's signing was a cultural event. He almost single-handedly introduced the sport of football to an entire nation that had largely ignored it before. Pele retired from professional football in 1977, playing one final emotional exhibition match between the New York Cosmos and his beloved former club, Santos. He played one half for each team and was substituted off the pitch in tears, embraced by players from both sides as the crowd rose in a standing ovation. Throughout his career, Pele scored over 1,280 goals in more than 1,360 matches, an achievement still recognized by Guinness World Records as the most goals scored by a single player in football history. Pele passed away on December 29, 2022, at the age of 82, after a long battle with cancer. The entire footballing world mourned. Tributes poured in from every corner of the globe. This is the story of Pele, not just a footballer, not just a 3-time World Cup winner, but a barefoot boy from a poor Brazilian town who once played with a ball made of rags and newspaper, and who, against every possible odd, became the king of football, immortal in the history of the beautiful game.